Well, hello adventurers. Time to do some maintenance on the T7. It's just gone 40,000 kilometers, so we are due for valves. So let's find out how this works. So first thing we're going to do is pull off all the plastics and do all the easy stuff, and then we'll start videoing from there. All right. Well, we've got the plastics off. And I'm just looking at what we're going to need to do, because we need to get this cover off, and there is not a lot of room. I've got a bit of wiring here, that's alright. Those cables probably, hose lines will probably be okay. I think I'm going to just take out or remove or loosen the ABS unit. That thing, regulator, is it? Whatever. Yeah, so I think I can just sort of shuffle his wires, but I think what I am going to have to do is remove the radiator. I think that would be the easiest. That gives us a lot more room in from the front. The head may even have to come off and slide out the front. Looking at it, because it's certainly not going to come out the side here, is it? So anyway, I'll take the radiator out. By the way, if you're not game to remove the tank and the radiator, then probably don't give this a go. This is just for those willing to give it a go. Okay, radiator is out. Now I've got a big space here. I think I can get to the 4 bolts that hold the cap on. I've taken the spark plug things out. Still looks pretty dirty now that I've got the torch on there. Might clean it a little bit more, and then yeah, undo these 4 screws. So 2 on the front, 1 just in here, silver one there, and 1 there. So take those 4 out and the top should pop off. Alright, so I suggest you get it as clean in there as you can, so that whenever you wiggle stuff around, no dirt sort of falls onto the top of the head, because once this cover comes off, your dirt's going to be going into your engine, right? So yeah, I've cleaned that pretty well. These 1, 2, 3 bolts come out pretty easily, but this one is Shitsville, because the only way I can get to it, it's directly under the frame here, so the only way I can get to it is with an Allen key from this direction, and I get there a quarter of a turn at a time. Anyway, I'll keep undoing that one, and then the head rocker cover should come off. The 4 bolts are out. Now, oh, in fact it's loose. Huh, well that comes off easy. Just work out which direction. Oh, you're kidding me. Holy shit burger. I am gonna have to move that wiring harness, which, what does that mean? Unplugging the entire front end. Okay, it is off, but let me tell you, I needed to disconnect basically, yeah, everything from the front end, even this wire that comes up here. As you can see, they're all pulled across to the far side. If I look in from the front, probably gives a better idea. Get my torch in there. So yeah, this is all the wiring loom from the front, pulled right across to that side, but not too far, because this bit of frame here, you have to lift this up. So basically there's nothing on this side. Then the lid lifts up, rotates, and then pulls out this way. I'm guessing no mechanic does this. I'd be pretty confident in saying that a mechanic would unbolt the motor, maybe just leave the one pivot down the bottom and drop the motor, maybe even have to remove these bars, drop the motor so that it rotates down, and then you can get the head off more easily out past where the radiator would be. That has to be the way they do it, because there's no way they do what I've just done, because that's an absolute nightmare. Don't do it that way. But I'm not going to put it all back together and then drop the motor. Now that I've got it off, I'm going to do my valves and put it back together and worry about it when I get to 80,000 Ks. When I get to 80, note to self, when I get to 80,000, drop the motor down. Do not try and remove wires far enough to get that rocket cover off. That is horrible. Oh, and I keep forgetting to mention, getting the radiator out is the easiest thing ever. The complete opposite to the rest of it. One bolt to get the radiator out. It's nice. So what we do now is we have to rotate the motor so the valves are in the right position so that we can check the gaps. Okay, so to get it top dead center for the left-hand cylinder, we set up this mark. There's a mark. So that's top dead center. But what we don't know is what top dead center of the other cylinder is. So I'm going to get a Sharpie and mark this skewer. So resting there, you can see the black mark on the skewer, and then when I start rotating the crank, that drops down. Alright, there it is. There, that's top dead center again. Okay, and there is the mark. So it's on the mark. So now I should check to see if this mark is lined up. The mark is in there, so we've gone full way around. So now we can check our number 1 cylinder valve. So we'll check them. Okay, so we write down our exhaust inlets for the left hand side, exhaust inlets for the right hand side, and we measure these. So it looks like this one is about 0.2, so here's my 0.203, and then as you can see, you can just push this one through. Well, actually maybe it's better view from this side. So this one goes through, but it won't go through this other side. That one's tight. So I went down a size. So we've got here the 0.15 and the 0.178. So yeah, 0.15. Goes through all right, and the 0.178 won't go through. So 0.16 it is. Now I'll just check the inlets. Okay, this one's pretty good to see. So this is 0.127, and it doesn't go through. And then 0.10 goes through very easily. So I'm going to call that a 0.11 on that intake. Okay, so we can measure them, 0.11 and 0.04. This one's pretty tight, but one of the thin feeler gauges does go through. It's good, because if it's completely tight, you have to pull the cams off and change it, more than once while you, because you need a measurement to be able to get the new measurement. So there's supposed to be intakes down to 0.1. So this is actually on the lower limit, and this one is actually tight by quite a bit. Exhaust should be 0.24. So they're actually both a bit tight. So yeah, everything is a bit tight. So I will be re-shimming this. Now I'll just do the other side. But to do the other side, there's only one mark on in here. So from that mark, you're supposed to go around 270 degrees, which will be top dead center of the other piston. So what I'm going to do is cheat and use my stick in the other cylinder. And I've got to go 270 degrees, so that's more than 180. So this should bring this up to the line, down again, and then back up to the line, and that will be 270 degrees. And the valves, the lobes on those cylinders should be facing the same direction that these ones are now. And these ones. Okay, well I've measured the right hand side now, and we've got both 0.2. I got out my better feeler gauge too. This is an imperial one. I've got a metric one. 0.08. So we are a bit tight on the, well, we're tight all over, but a bit more on the intake. I'm just going to recheck this one because, yeah, I've got more accurate feeler gauge. But so the other thing is that when I said you crank it, oh, this is my other feeler gauge. See, a lot more options. I can get to be a bit more accurate. When I said you had to go 270, no, that's wrong. It was only the, what's 360 minus 270, 90 degrees. I only had to go 90 degrees to get the other cams in the right position. So now I'm going to bring it back, which will be 270. Should bring me back to the mark. In fact, I'll just leave the camera running. So that's coming up. So that's the top. I'll do one more revolution. And it's going to be about there. So let me look in the thing. Yeah, that is spot on. So my little stick method works. So yeah, that was a 270 from the side. So now the valves are pointing, the lobes are pointing in the right direction. So yeah, I'll just recheck that one, and then we're good to start looking at getting new shims. Okay, so next we're going to remove the timing chain tensioner. Undo these two bolts evenly, because you don't want it to get cockeyed, I don't think. And then once that's out, then we can tie up the timing chain, make sure we're not going to lose it, and then take off all those bolts. Alright, let's do that. Okay, so this is the timing chain tensioner. So yep, just comes out, 2 bolts, and then this is obviously doesn't recoil, so you can take out this bolt, and then in there is an Allen key, so we can put the Allen key in, and then when we wind the Allen key, you can see that it winds down, and then if we release the Allen key, it'll shoot out again. So maybe I can do that without killing it. There it goes. I don't know if you can see that or not, but yeah, so that's how that works. So when we put this back in, we'll have to put the Allen key in, wind it all the way in, insert it back into the engine, bolt these 2 bolts up, and then release the Allen key, and then that will put the tension on the timing chain. Okay, now we're just going to loosen all the cam shaft retainer bolts. Manual says to do it in a zigzag pattern, so as you're not unduly straining one end. Okay, so all these bolts are loose, and then take this off. Okay, then we need to lift our cams off, and what we're going to do is put a zip tie around this cam chain, because once I take these cams out, I don't want the cam chain to drop down the hole. I don't want to do it too tight though, otherwise I might not get the cams out. So anyway, let's take the intake cam out. Alright, cam is out. And exhaust. Now the exhaust one has the decompression system on it. It's not connected to anything, so I guess it can come out okay. Okay, so these are our, I don't know, what do you call those, buckets or something? So we need to lift one of them off. Can you see in there all right? I might just move you to a better position. Okay, so to get these buckets out, I was just trying and I cannot I cannot get those out, right? So I'm going to use a magnet. So here I have my computer hard drive magnet, and I will, whoop, see, oi, that works. So I'll probably get my hand in the way here, lifting it up. And on the inside is the shim. So the shim comes with it when you use a magnet. Okay, so there's the bucket with the shim, so we can get this apart. Then, yeah, there's the shim in there. So keep the bucket. So we're just going to do these one at a time and basically put them back, because we don't want to mix up which shim comes out of which, off which valve, because then all your measurements are completely stuffed up. So this one says on it 195. I don't know if you can read, it's a bit shiny. 195, so that's 1.95 mil. We will check that with the calipers. There you go, 195, spot on. So this is the intake at the end. This was, we're 008. So what we've got to do, if I get our pen, okay, so we've got 008 and we've got a 1.95 in there. Now this should have been, intake should be 0.11 to 0.2. Now the clearance gets smaller as they wear out. So what we want to do is we want to go for the biggest end. So we want to go 0.2. So we want this to be 0.2. 0.20. So 0.20 less 0.008 is 0.12, right? 0.12. So we need to take 1.12 off the shim size. So 1.95 less 0.12 makes a 1.83. So I need to get a 1.83 shim for that valve, and I'll turf this 1.95, put in the 1.83, and then we can recheck the specs. So I'll go and do that for every valve, and I'll show you the results. Okay, all the caps are back on. So using a good magnet, so this is a pretty strong magnet, that's out of a hard drive of a computer. That worked absolutely flawlessly. Every single time the shim came out with the cap, I could measure it and just put it all back together. So yeah, that works an absolute treat. So my numbers are, as you can see there, so I need 1.72, a 7.4, a 7.6, a 7.1, an 8.3, an 8.2, an 8.6, and 8.5. So they're fairly consistent. That's the shims I've got to get. As you can see, you know, I need a 1.86, and I have got a 1.86 in this valve. So I can move this one to here. What else have I got? A 1.81. You know, I could move this one to here. I could move this 1.86 to here. This 1.84 close enough to this 1.85. So I could actually move all the exhaust shims over to all the intake shims and just buy four exhaust shims. Because I think the shims, I get them, I think about $6 or $8 each. I think they're about $6 each. So yeah, I'll go and buy them individually. I'm not going to buy like a hot cams kit, you know, and you get 1,000 shims and you'll never use them and it costs you $100 and something. Sort of pointless. So it's sort of pointless buying one of those shim kits when you just need, what, 4 shims and it's going to cost me $6, $12, $25. Yeah, so anyway, I'll go and do that on the Monday and put this back together during the week so that hopefully I've got a bike for next weekend. Alright, well, it's the next day and I've got my little bag of shims. Of course, don't believe the numbers written on them. Measure them before you put them in. There's my setup again. Yeah, precision shims in Croydon there. Easy to deal with. So yeah, let's remove the rags and start swapping shims. Okay, put my magnet in there. 1.81. Yep, so that's a 1.8. So I'm going to put in my 1.7. Just double check that that's the right thickness. 1.71. It is. Okay. Just going to put a dab of oil on basically everything that I put back together, and then we're going to douse all this area with oil before we put the top back on. Okay, there you go. So that's first one done. Basically repeat that 7 more times. Alright, well, all of our shims are in and the buckets are back on. Now, time to put the cams back in. Before we do that, we're just going to double check that this line is still lined up, which it is. That means our cylinder hasn't moved while we've been messing around. So now we just got to work out how these cams go back in. Okay, so I've just sat the cams in there. Take my little stick out, just double checking that I'm at top dead center on that cylinder, and the mark on the through that little sight hole is lined up. Then our cams, the intake, that little line lines up flush with the engine, and on the exhaust, that line lines up flush with the case, and all the lobes are pointing in the right directions. There's both two are in. Number one cylinder's in and in, so the other ones won't line up until we turned it 270 degrees. That's that. So yeah, now that I'm sure that's on, I'll put those caps back on. I'm going to oil. So what we're going to do before we put these caps back on is just get a ton of oil over all these lobes, so that everything is oiled up, and then we'll put those caps back on. Okay, so this one is the exhaust cap is tightened down or torqued to 10 Newton meters. And then don't ask me how I know, but do not tighten down or don't even do up the other screws until you've double checked that your cam chain is completely tight from this side, wraps around this chain, and then you get the timing mark lined up. Just double check that they're all lined up. I say don't ask me how I know, because I tightened this down and this actually looked like it was a bit low, and then as soon as I gave things a wiggle, this just jumped a tooth. It maybe it wasn't quite on the tooth, I don't know, but I had to undo them all again, realign that, make sure that's tight. Actually, I think that was the problem. It was a bit loose on this end, so this one rolled back a bit, and then this one dunk, clicked over a tooth. So the cam chain tension is not in or anything yet, but anyway, so I'm pretty confident that this is tight now. I'll now torque this one down. You know, it's all sitting nice and flush on its seat. So I'll torque this one down, and then we'll put the cam chain in, and then we'll rotate the motor and make sure that these marks line up again once we've gone all the way around. So 10 Newton meters is not very tight, so definitely don't over tighten these. The torque is set for things like thermal expansion, so this is not something that you want to go ham-fisted on, because they might break during, not while you're doing them up, but after the motor heats up. Okay, so just wind this thing open. Close. Oh shit. Oh, that's the end. Okay, so it does actually stay there until now, this is not the best place to not the easiest place to install. Okay, so I've now done up these two Allen keys, and now we'll pull out the oh, there you go. Didn't take much, only just touched it and it boonk, sprung. Then you can see this jiggle, and now the cam chain is tight. I've got them all bolted down, torqued up, turned it a full all the way around, lined up the mark on the other side, and now my eye mark is perfect, and my the marking line on the exhaust is perfect. So we're all good now to recheck the valves, and I hope they're all good, because if they're not, wow, I just wasted a lot of time. So yep, I'll do that now. All right, here we are, all done. Just checking these. That's the 0.20. Goes in there with a bit of drag. I think this one goes in a little bit easy, but the 23 won't fit through. So I've called this one a 21. I think it's 0.01 oversized. It's meant to be between intake, between 1.1 and 0.2. I think I'm up to 0.21. So anyway, that's close enough. 0.20. These are spot on. Exhausts. These ones are spot on. This one 28, so it should be between 24 and 30. 28. This one I think is a bit loose as well, so I think I got 31. So yeah, that's where they are. But as the valves wear, these gaps close up. So you want them on the higher end, but obviously slightly out of spec is not ideal. But I'm not pulling it apart for that smaller difference. So yeah, I'll put the head back on, redo all the wiring, and next thing you'll see is whether it starts or not. See if I've completely buggered it up. All right, well, filled it up with water. It's all back together. Tank's on. No other plastics yet. Well, I think everything's plugged in. Let's turn it on and see if it'll start. Might just turn it on a couple of times, get that fuel primed. That sounds good anyway. Hey! Look at that! Not even a half a turnover. Japan for the win! See, I will now recheck the oil level. I'll wait for it to flow back down, redo the oil, and I think we're all good. So there you go. Redoing the valves on the T7. Good luck.